Hey now, it's getting a little better. I wasn't a big fan of the first episode, but I definitely like the second episode of the Ahsoka series more. We're getting deeper into what's actually going on, getting on track, and moving past all of the expository dialogue meant to catch viewers up. As expected, right? As expected. I enjoyed seeing the relationship between Ahsoka and Hera, the confidence in their leadership, their dedication to their duty. It really comes through here. But what I really loved the most about this episode was the moment between Baylan, Shin, and Morgan. They're discussing Thrawn's banishment and return. We see a beautiful map of the Star Wars galaxy and another galaxy and the path between those two galaxies. A pathway to Parody. I love the idea of moving beyond one galaxy into another. It's not necessarily the first time Star Wars has mentioned this, really, but it does expand the scope of the Star Wars universe even more, giving us and those inside of the story a feeling of the unknown, uncharted territory. What lies beyond? I really like that mystery. That scene was great. Baylan says that Thrawn's return means war for some or a new beginning for others, and a power beyond anything they've ever dreamed of for Shin and himself. This moment did a great job setting up Thrawn's return, gave it some weight. I also thoroughly enjoyed Ahsoka and Hera's trip to Corellia. The conversation that they have with the shipyard boss does a great job setting up motivations and loyalty in this post-Empire New Republic world. That shipyard boss says that the average worker doesn't care about the nuances of galaxy politics. You know, they have loyalty as long as they're getting paid. The conversation that they have with the shipyard boss does a good job painting the picture of a fractured system where not everyone who was once loyal to the Empire is just going to roll over and become loyal to the New Republic at the snap of a finger. There would obviously be some detractors, and through dialogue and a couple scenes, we hear and we see that. My biggest problem with the show so far, my biggest problem with Ahsoka, both the first episode and this one, is the acting and the directing, or maybe the cinematography. I feel like a lot of the performances are static and flat. Not a lot of emotion on faces or through inflection. Every line of dialogue is delivered almost in the same way, despite the circumstances and events around them being drastically different. And the way the show is shot feels the same way, flat and static. Not a lot of interesting shots within these scenes. The way it's shot is kind of boring. I'm not talking about the action scenes. Those are dynamic and relatively exciting. But the dialogue scenes and whatnot just feel flat and uninventive. Maybe that's just me. But that's a big takeaway that I'm getting from both of these episodes. You know, I always bring it up, but you look at something like Andor, the way that show is shot is so inventive and cinematic. Comparing these two shows from that point of view is just, I mean, I don't know. It's uncomparable. They're so drastically different in terms of quality. The first episode was directed by Dave Filoni, and the second episode was directed by Steph Green. I definitely feel like Green is a more competent live action director. This episode felt more visually interesting in terms of camera work, but not that much more. Baylan is a great character. Despite not seeing or hearing from him a lot yet, I like the gray area that his character seems to live in. At the end of the episode, he says to kill her, Ahsoka, he means Ahsoka, would be a shame. There are so few Jedi left. He's overtly sentimental about his past, about where and what he came from. He basically says, hey, I'm just being honest. He's not really trying to hide this sentimentality. I'm assuming this is throwing up some red flags for Morgan, red flags that she might be reporting on. But as an audience member, it's nice to have a character like this who isn't just big bad red lightsaber guy who's grinding his teeth at the very thought of decimating the remaining Jedi. Episode 2 was definitely better than the first one. More of a setup for things to come, rather than a description of what came before. Now I feel like the show is finding its footing and getting on a good track. I have a better feeling about watching the show after this episode than I did with the first one. I hope it gets better. Now let's just see what happens. HelloGreedo, out.